Hello everyone, welcome to the second lab of ECE573 Advanced Embedded Logic Design. In the previous lab 1, we discussed about the vector multiplication implementation using the SDSoC, and we compared the functionality as well as the execution time calculation using the quick emulator tool available in the SDSoC. So in the last lab, when we ran the vector multiplications on the using the QEMU, we got the results which are similar to this, where execution time on the software took around 8K cycles, and the execution time on the hardware took significantly large number of cycles. So in terms of the seconds, execution time in case of the software is almost in the microseconds compared to the seconds in case of the hardware. Now, we want to see whether we get the similar results when we implement the same application on the actual hardware. So I have the zedboard connected to my laptop. So I'm going to, I have created the project with the hard target as a hardware instead of the software, and using the release configurations, and I have moved the vector multiplication part of the code to the hardware. Now I'm going to run this one on the hardware. So I'm going to do as a run as launch on a hardware. So this process is feasible when you have the zedboard connected to your laptop. So in this process, when you do the run as, your FPGA will be programmed first, followed by your ARM processor. So now the FPGA has been programmed. Now the ARM processor is got programmed, and you can see that you can use this SDX terminal, which is another option than the Tera term. And by here you can configure the corresponding baud rate and as per your application requirement. And you can see that when the corresponding application, vector multiplication application, ran on the software, it took only 307 clock cycle, and hardware took 9K clock cycle. And you can see that these numbers are significantly different than this number. And from this, we can conclude that the QEMU does not give us the accurate result for the timing. QEMU is a good functionality check, but for the timing check, you need to implement your algorithm on the hardware. Now, if you don't have the access to the hardware physically, but you have the zedboard connected to your network, then as we have discussed in the previous lecture, we have the another way of configuring the zedboard remotely via using the SSH. So for that, you need to build the same project, but this time you need to build it using the Linux as an operating system with the target as a hardware. You can have the build configuration either debug and release anyway, but here it should be a Linux one. So as we have discussed in the last lecture, where we have demonstrated the entire process of configuring the remote zedboard to run our application. So we have discussed how to copy the files from your SD card folder. So if you see here in the Linux, you will get in the debug one, you will get the SD card folder, and you need to copy all these files in your zedboard. And this process we have already done in the previous lecture, and I have already copied my files in the zedboard. So I'm going to see whether the zedboard is on or not. So this is the IP address which has been assigned to our zedboard, and in your case, for you, if you want to access it from outside the campus, you need to use the VPN. So we are getting the ping from the zedboard, so it is working fine. So I'm going to do the SSH. Okay, so okay, this looks good. I'm going to change to the MNT directory. And if you see here, I have already copied my ELF file lab 11 Linux underscore AELF. If you have not copied it, then you need to copy it via using the PSCP command or SCP command, as we have discussed in the previous lecture. So now I'm going to run this application file, which is the lab 11 underscore ELF, and you can see that my application has been executed. And you can see here for the Linux one, it took 1067 clock cycle for the software, 27 clock cycle for the hardware, and the corresponding details, the seconds details are given. So you can see that depending upon the way you implement your system or your application, your execution time will be different. In case of the Linux-based approach, execution time is more because your ARM processor is executing the Linux, and on the top of the Linux, you are executing your application. So your ARM processor is shared between the other task of the Linux operating system along with your application. So it takes more time. While in this case, where we have done the bare metal application, only your C code is getting implemented on your ARM processor. So ARM processor is dedicated for your application. So you can see that the execution time is much less. Okay. So, but you can see that we get the reasonable execution time when you actually implement it on the hardware compared to the QEMU. We cannot rely on the QEMU to get the execution time. Okay, so this is the first outcome of the first observation from the lab 2, that don't rely on the execution time of the QEMU. It's better to test it on the board, either by if you have the physical access or if you have the network access. Now, the next thing we are going to discuss is the debugging mode available inside the your SDSoC. So let's go to our basic lab where we have done the target emulation, where the build configuration is debug, and here I'll show you how to check the step-by-step functionality of your code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the project folder. I'm going to use the debug as instead of the run as, and then I'm going to do the launch and emulator. If you have built the project for the hardware, you can also do it for the hardware debug. But here we are using the project for the emulator. So we are going to do the launch on the emulator. So I'm launching it on the emulator, and you can see that now my perspective will change to the debug. Okay, so you can see that here now I'll be shifting from this icon to this icon on the top right top corner. Then I'm going to do the start emulator. So when I launch the emulator in the debug load, it will stop at the first line of my code in the main.cpp. So the emulator is launching, and hopefully in the couple of seconds you will get the corresponding TCF communication. So here you can see that the ARM core 0 is running and ARM core 1 is suspended. So that means we are running our application on ARM core 0 and not on ARM core 1. Okay, so you can see that now I'm running the emulator in the debug mode. So you can see that emulator has stopped at this point. Okay, so now we need to see what happens at this position. So you can see that here you can see the variables value, and here you can see that they have some default garbage value assigned to each one. So I'm going to run execute the first line. So I'm going to do the run to line here. So you can see that the AIN, by using the malloc function, you got some address to the AIN. Okay. So then similarly, you will get the address to the bin, golden out, and the actual out. So you can see that all of them have got the address somewhere. Now, if you want to know, now these are the address of the memory, because you are assigning the A in some location in the memory. So we want to know what is the location at that value. So you can see that here you have the memory tab. You can go at that location. So here I need to go for the 0x, x indicates hexadecimal, 001 AD 218. So this is for the AIN. So you can see that these are the this is the first address of this AIN location. So AIN will be stored at this one. Similarly, we can go for the BIN, which is 0x001A D 2A0. So you can say that 2A0. So this is from this location. Okay. And then since there is everybody got the proper memory allocation, we will not go into this one, so we should come here. Okay, so up to this the function executed. You can see that the function check variable is 0, and you will see that this is the variable 0. Then from here we'll go to our mul check function. So we'll be coming here. So let's run to the line here. So you can see we are here, and once we are here, let's come at this for loop. Okay, so we are at the for loop. Okay, and you can see that there is some values are being assigned to the corresponding the values are being assigned to corresponding registers. Okay, so now we are here inside this for loop, and now what we are going to do in the first one, we are going to do the initialize array. Okay, so we are going to do the initialize array. That means we are going to go at this function. So at this one, the I value is 0. Okay, so the I value is 0. And what we are going to do at this A in and the B in, we are going to store some value. Okay, so you can see that this is the A in, which has some value here, and this is the B in, and we are going to see how the values are being assigned. So once I run it to this line, so you can see that A in at the first location it is 0, and B in you got some random value at this location. Okay, so similarly we can also find out the golden out value. So we can go there, 0x 0AD 328. Okay, so that is also 0. So I'll come into the for loop again, run to this line. So that means I am at the iteration I is equal to 1. So I'll write at the A is equal to 1. And you can see that if I go to A is equal to 1, I got the value of 348. Now you may be wondering what this value of 348,000. Okay, and if you go and find out this corresponding value, you will see that we are storing the floating number value, and this floating number value corresponds to the actual value, actual corresponding to the ith value in the binary normal decimal representation. So here you can see that at the second location it has written 3F8 and 40, and if you convert this number, okay, so for example you can see that the binary number decimal number 1 corresponds to the hexadecimal number of the IEEE 754 3F8 000. Now if we look at the 2, you will get 0x4 and all 0. Now we'll see after in the next round, if we come here, so you can see that the corresponding value is being written. Okay, so similarly you can see that the different random numbers are being written at the B value. You can see that the random numbers are being written at the appropriate B values as well. Okay, so if I run this again, so you can see that the at the different B values you get the appropriate one. Now if I come here, now we are at the init array. Now let's come here so that we have initialized all our array. Okay, so now we have the count start. So we are going to do the count start. We are going to do the vector multiplication, and then we'll see what happens at the golden value. So you can see right now the golden output is all 0. So we'll see if it is getting updated or not. Okay, so we are at the okay, so this address is wrong. So I need to put the address of 001 AD 328, not 3328. Okay, and so you can see that I'm getting some value at the golden reference. And if I look at the actual out, which is 3B0, it should be all 0. Okay, it is all 0. Then I'll come here, I'll execute this part of the code again. So it may take time because it's a hardware part. So it has been executed and you can see that I'm getting some value. Okay, and then once I compare this value, so you can see that the first two are 0 here. Here also first two are 0. Then it is 425840. You get 4258, then 4290 here. You get the 4290. So this is how you can verify the functionality of your code and whether it is working fine or not. So this is the debug mode of the SDSoC, which is a very important one to verify that the functionality of your code is correct before you go to the hardware implementation. So in this video, we discuss about the issues regarding the timing calculation in the QEMU and the corresponding accurate result we can get via hardware implementation. And then we discuss about the debugging mode inside the SDSoC.